Okay, so we are going to discuss the different estates in the new 1.30 EU4 game. I will start with a brief overview of the different privileges that you can grant to your estates, and then I will talk about the different strategies that you can use either in solo player or in multiplayer. So there are three different estates, the clergy, nobility and burghers, or their equivalent in other places in the world. And for some different type of governments, you can have more or less estates. It is recording at the moment. So for either of these estates, you can grant privileges. I will make an overview of the different privileges. There are some that you can grant to either or each one of your estates. For example, the clergy land right have the equivalent nobility land rights and burghers land rights. For this one, you will lose a little bit of crown land at one given point in time, but you will get some governing capacity out of it, which is nice, but will be interesting later on in the game. That is when you arrive at max governing capacity, so when you are a fairly big nation already. So we don't need that in early game. Then we have the mana generation. You have one for each category. This one costs 10 crown land and will reduce a little bit the happiness of your estates. But it's really nice to take them, and you will want to have them as soon as possible, since mana is the base currency in the game. Then you have burghers in Admiralty, which is one that will lower the cost of the admirals and increase your yearly navy tradition decay. So if you want to have a high navy tradition, to have very good admirals, then you need this one. However, I think it's really not worth it to take it, since navy tradition is extremely easy to generate in the game, and unless you are playing a multiplayer game and you really need better admirals than your enemies, I don't think it is the most interesting one. Then there is one for the prestige that will cost a little bit of tax, but really not that much. 5% is not a huge loss, since you are generating money with tax, trade, production, possibly gold, possibly from looting the enemies. So it will basically result in maybe 1 or 2% of income loss for some prestige at one point in time, and prestige generation over time. If you need to cross a threshold of prestige, either 50 prestige to get kingdom rank, or 75 to get empire rank, it's really a good thing to use this one. And if you need it for a mission or anything, it's nice to have it at your disposal. Then there is the Commercial Advisory Board, which will reduce the advisor cost for the diplomatic advisors by 1/4, which is clearly not negligible, since you can stack the advisor cost reduction up to 90%, and then pay only 10% of the price for your advisors. That makes really dirt cheap mana generation, so it's really nice to have it. It will however increase the stability cost, so do not use it when you play a republic with a low republican tradition, or when you are in a disaster and you already have a stability cost modifiers. But otherwise it's really nice to take them. Since we are at 0 stab at the start of the game, I will always wait a few months before taking them, since I want to stab up before. The indebted to the burghers is a really strong estate privilege. it's extremely strong. It will give you 5 loans at 1% interest when the base interest rate in the game is 4%. So you will pay way less than you would have if you took normal loans. You will lose 1 mercantilism, but that's completely acceptable for the price reduction that you will have. You will lose some trade efficiency, but that will disappear as soon as you revoke the privilege. And you will gain 0.5 inflation, but that's exactly the same as what you would have from taking normal loans. So when you are in a defensive war, or when you have to get loans, it's way smarter to take the loans with this one rather than taking normal loans. Okay, there is the free enterprise that has equivalence for the clergy and the nobility that will just increase the loyalty and the influence of the estate. I recommend to take it like every time you have a free privilege slot, take it, because well, the estates will give you bonuses if they are happy, above 60% happiness, and they will give you maluses if they are under 40%. So the higher the base happiness is, the easier your life gets. Control over monetary policy is one you will want to take when you are recovering from a difficult war. So once the war is finished, you take it to pay off your loans, you take it to reduce the inflation that was generated by the loans of the war. It will, however, have a very high price. All your power cost will be increased by 5%. You don't want to take that when you need to get technologies or ideas like just after. You will need to time it right. Then there is a private trade fleets that is mostly interesting for naval nations. As I'm Austria, I don't have much of a navy at the moment, so I don't really need to take it. But otherwise, it's always good to have it, since it will reduce the ship cost and increase their efficiency. So it's never a bad thing. And finally, there are the monopolies. Monopolies will give you upfront the money generated by one type of resource and give you some mercantilism. However, for 10 years, the provinces that produce this good will not have any production at all. So if I take this monopoly here, the province that generate glass will not have production. That's quite interesting to use them early on in the game, since your production will stay basically constant or increase just a little bit, so you will not lose a lot of money, and since you will have it upfront, you can invest this money into things that are even better for your nation. You will want to time it as well, because when you are building workshops or manufactories, you want to take the monopoly once the buildings are completed. Otherwise, you will lose a little bit of money for the time being. For the administrative privileges, so this one is the equivalent of the burger ones, this one as well. This one is the interaction with the papacy. You will win a little bit of papal influence over time, but the cost of what you ask from the Pope will be increased. It's increased by a very small amount, so it is interesting to take it if there are not that many Catholic nations in the world, and if you have enough cardinals to generate papal influence. So it can be interesting, but it's mostly situational. The clerical advisory board is the equivalent of the burger one, so I will skip it. The clerical ministers allows you to convert your land at a cheaper cost, so it's nice to have it when your nation needs to be converted quite a lot. However, it increases the influence without increasing the loyalty, so it can be tricky to remove it later on, so keep it for like situations where you really need it. Oversight of the clergy is the equivalent of the burger ones. Expansionist zealotry gives you morale if you are fighting heretics and heathens. However, it will give you maluses to morale if you don't fight them. So it's interesting when you expand into some people that are not of your religion. I never take it to be completely honest, since well, 5% of morale is not that much and the conditions are can be annoying. The monopolies are always nice, and when you are faced with multiple monopolies, you can take all of them obviously, but you can also prefer to take only one each time, and I usually take the one that gives less money because it will affect less provinces. And so if you have production increase in one or multiple provinces, it will affect the less one. So basically you will lose less money by improving your nation, or you will not have increased generation loss, net loss. Finally, we will finish with the nobility. So this one is an equivalent, this one is an equivalent of what we saw already. Nobility in Officer Corp is quite interesting, since it will reduce the general cost. It will also reduce the army tradition decay for upfront cost of 15 army tradition. So it's nice to have it. It's the equivalent of the admiral ones, but it's way more interesting, since you will, with most nations, roll way more often for generals than admirals, and because it's way harder to farm army tradition than it is to farm naval tradition. So if you have a free nobility slot, then I advise to take it. It is very nice to do it. Increased levies is possibly the strongest privilege that you can have apart from the mana generation ones. So I recommend to take it all the time because it will increase extremely efficiently your manpower. You will lose a little bit of tax, but you will gain a lot of men for your nation. So it's completely worth to take it. The impact of the manpower modifier and the tax modifier are based on the current land share of the nobility in your nation. So if the nobility controls all the land of your nation, you will have a 100% manpower modifier for 25% tax modifier cost. It's still completely worth it. So you will want to take it, and you will want to get to give nobility most of your land later on, but that's for an advanced strategy. This one is the equivalent of the clergy and burger ones. Right of the council will just increase the happiness and influence of this estate. Supremacy over the crown is very nice, since it improves all the estates. It will also make random missions spawn from time to time, so it's nice to have it. If you have a free slot, feel free to take it. And we have monopolies as well. So here we are set with a base start, and we will be able to talk about the different strategies that are available to you. The one I recommend to use, the one that I feel is the strongest in the game, is this one. You take all the mana, which will reduce your crown land. You take those that improves the happiness of your estates. You take, so here again, the mana. You take the supremacy over the crown. So here we are at 4, we can take much more. You can take the prestige, you can take this one. You have 2 slots, oh no, and I need to take this one, so I can't take the land of commerce since I need 10% crown land, but I am at 998, so I'm very close. I just need to dev once. I will dev my gold mine because it's a lot of money, and I take this one. I have only 1 spot left, and I will take this one as soon as I have stabs up. I don't want to pay 10% more for the stab, and basically I'm good to go. Now I can sell the titles. I gained a lot of money because the money you gain from selling the titles depend on the current crown land in your nation. The less crown land you have, the more money you will gain from selling it. So it's extremely interesting to sell it. And then I seize land. I have some maluses because I am at low crown land, but these maluses are totally fine. I will dev once more so that I cross the 5% threshold, and then the maluses are these ones. I will have a tax reduction, but it's less money than like the money I lose in tax is way less than what I gain by selling the titles at low crown land. So it's basically worth it to do it. The liberty desire from the subject is an issue if you have a lot of subjects like the Timurids or Ashikaga, but for most nations it's absolutely not an issue. So I like completely dismiss it in most cases. The maximum absolutism is not a problem until we reach the age of absolutism in 1612. So we don't care about that later on, early on. And the only real problem is the monthly autonomy change. But a 0.2 monthly autonomy change is basically completely manageable by just lowering the autonomy every 25 years. And if you have other modifiers to mitigate that, it's completely fine. So we will have to lower the autonomy, which means that we will have some rebels from time to time, but the money that we get from it and the fact that we have the mana early on is completely worth the troubles. So this is, I think, the strongest strategy at the moment. Another strategy would be to not stay at 0 crown land and instead trigger an event that will give us crown land. So I will start by doing exactly the same. So I take that, I take that, this one, I will take the prestige one as well, and this one, and I will take for the military this one, this one. I will dev once more here, and I will take this one, and I need to be careful to leave one slot open in the nobility one. I can do that as well, and I can do that, and I will take this one. Okay. Now I am at negative crown land, which gives me a lot of maluses, but if I just wait a little bit from 3 to 12 months. The mean time to happen, I think, is 6 months. There will be an event that will give me crown land for nearly free. I just wait a little bit. So sometimes it triggers very soon, sometimes it can take like up to, yeah, okay, there it is. So it took 8 months to trigger, 9 months to trigger. Once it triggers, I seize the land and I take it. What it will do, what it's going to do, it will just give autonomy in all my provinces, but it will give me a lot of crown land in exchange. I need to wait 20 years to revoke it. So for 20 years I will have 25 autonomy in all my provinces. Here. What it means is that my force limit has been reduced a little bit, since the force limit depends on the autonomy of the nation. It reduces my income as well a little bit, but I do not have to worry about the crown land anymore. I am at an amount of crown land that doesn't give me any maluses anymore, and in 20 years I won't have any problems anymore. The only problem with that is that for most nations in multiplayer you will need to fight a lot of wars in the first 20 years, and you cannot afford to lower your force limit. It really is too much of a risk. And the other problem is that you will gain less money from selling crown land at high crown land that you would have selling it at 0 crown land. So it's a little bit more risky because you have to be weaker for 20 years, and it's a little bit more inefficient since you will gain less money. The only real interest of this strategy is that you don't have to lower the autonomy in your nation, which means that you don't need to fight rebels time and time again. So basically that's it for this strategy. And the final one is just not really worrying about the estates, and it's starting like never going below 20 crown land. So what you can do is start by seizing land, and then you can give the nobility primacy over the nobility. You give the other privileges as you want, but you don't give a religious state or land of commerce right now. You will wait 5 years so that you can seize land, and then you will give them. So basically you will wait to go back at 29% crown land, get a -10, dev a little bit to stay above the threshold, etc. That means that you will have to wait 5 years to generate the mana, the admin mana, and 15 years to generate the diplomatic mana. So that's some mana that you lose. You will lose 60 admin and 180 diplomatic mana. That's acceptable since you don't have maluses in the meantime. But really what is the problem of this strategy is that you will need another 10 years in top of the 15 years to start selling titles. You will sell titles for the first time 25 years into the game. That means that in the first strategy I would have sold the titles 5 times, so that I would have made nearly 3,000 ducats. So it's a net loss of a lot of money doing this strategy. The real interest is that you never have autonomy, and you never have to fight rebels. So that's something that you can do in solo player games. I don't recommend. this strategy. I recommend the first one since I think it's the most efficient one. Okay, I think that's it for the estates. There are some peculiar things with estates in India, for example, who have more estates. We will go into India. I think Vijay has them. They should have another estate that is the Vishayas. Basically, Brahmin is the clergy, Maratha is the nobility, and Jain and Vishayas is the burghers, and Jains is another one. So they have well, Jains and Vishayas are a mix of Jain and Vishayas is the burghers, and they have some particularity. I will not go that much into the details. Some other nations here and there have specific orders, but basically the strategies that I talked about always are the same. So I will stop there for now, and I hope that it helped you. Thanks very much, and see you later.